You walk into a room and the energy shifts, not because of your suit, not because of your status, not even because of your story. It's something else. Something deeper. Something most men your age underestimate. See, when she smiles at you, it's not about your gray hair or your bank account. It's not about the car you drove up in or the watch wrapped around your wrist. It's presence. It's command. It's calm. You carry something younger men haven't earned yet. You've lived. You've lost. You've been knocked down and gotten back up. That smile you catch across the room, it's recognition. It's admiration for the man who doesn't chase attention, because he already owns the room without trying. Younger women don't smile because of youth. They smile because of certainty. Confidence that doesn't yell. Masculinity that doesn't flinch. You've stopped performing. You're not trying to impress anyone anymore. And that is magnetic. They see a man who knows who he is. One who's learned how to speak less and say more, who listens with intention not to reply, who chooses his battles and wins the ones that matter. She sees maturity, depth, and self-respect. She sees a man who leads himself first before he ever tries to lead others. So many forget this truth. Real attraction isn't about flash. It's about foundation. It's not loud. It's solid. And when you've walked through fire, when you've sharpened your edges through storms, when you've stayed disciplined when the world said you didn't have to anymore, that's when the world starts to notice you again. So don't dismiss the look. Don't doubt the smile. Don't question the energy in the room when you enter it. It's not nostalgia. It's reverence. You've got something they can feel but can't explain. Because it wasn't bought, it was built. Now stand in that truth. Don't shrink from it. Because the world doesn't need louder men, it needs stronger ones. Walk with it, speak with it, live with it. There's something unmistakably powerful about a man who walks into a room and doesn't need to announce himself. He doesn't demand attention. He draws it. Not through volume or theatrics, but through the gravity of his presence. This is where older men hold an advantage they rarely acknowledge. Their presence isn't something they have to create. It's something they've earned. It's built through years of standing tall in storms, of being tested and remaining unmoved. The room reacts to this without even knowing why. It senses something grounded, something real. Presence isn't about being flashy or charming. It's not about clever lines, loud laughter, or dominating conversations. It's in the pause before you speak. It's in the way your eyes observe instead of rush. It's in the confidence of stillness, of patience, of not needing to fill the silence just to be seen. Younger men often rush to impress, to prove. But when you've lived through enough, you realize that the ones worth keeping close are drawn to depth, not noise. Performance is exhausting. It's fragile. It hinges on being validated, on doing enough to be noticed, on playing a role. But presence is sustainable. It doesn't rise and fall with who's watching. It exists whether someone acknowledges it or not. That's what makes it powerful. You walk in with your posture speaking before your mouth ever opens. You sit down and don't compete for space because you already own yours. The way you carry yourself tells a story far more intriguing than any joke or line ever could. Most people are addicted to performance without even realizing it. Social media, relationships, careers, they all feed the idea that worth is tied to display. But real influence, the kind that shifts a conversation, calms a conflict, or commands respect, doesn't need a platform. It needs a backbone. And that backbone is built when you stop needing to be anyone else but who you are, unshaken and clear. You don't strive for applause. You become the man who doesn't even notice when it's missing. When a younger woman smiles at you, it often has nothing to do with superficial attraction. It's curiosity. It's the quiet pull of someone who exudes peace in a world addicted to chaos. She notices how your energy doesn't flinch, how you listen without interrupting, how your gaze isn't searching for approval but instead grounded in self-awareness. She may not know why she feels drawn in, but she feels it. And what she feels is presence. You've learned through time that value doesn't need to be spoken. It needs to be lived. You've stopped needing to perform because you've proven what matters to yourself already. And when a man no longer needs to perform, he becomes something rare. Someone who doesn't chase opportunities, they find him. Someone who doesn't try to be memorable. He simply is, by the way he moves, the way he pauses, the way he holds space. That ability to be still without being absent, to be calm without being passive, to be quiet without being invisible, that's presence. And it's this unshakable energy that makes others lean in. It's not about having the right words. It's about having weight behind the words you choose. And that only comes from experience, from self-awareness, from restraint. Younger men try to dominate the space. You become the space. Even in moments of confrontation or tension, it's your presence that dictates outcomes. You don't escalate, you anchor. You don't compete, you observe. The power you carry doesn't come from intimidation, it comes from assurance. You know your worth, and that knowing radiates beyond your clothes, beyond your age, beyond your appearance. It's in your aura, and that's what's truly attractive. Presence is a reflection of inner mastery. It's how you carry the lessons of the past without wearing them like baggage. It's how you move without haste, how you speak without the need to be right, how you choose stillness over spotlight. It's the quiet force that sets you apart. And no matter how loud the world becomes, that presence will always speak louder than any performance ever could. Confidence that doesn't chase is built, not bought. It isn't loud, flashy, or constantly seeking attention. It doesn't beg to be seen, heard, or validated. It simply is. When a man has walked through enough fire in his life, when he's made mistakes, lost things, rebuilt again and again, he stops trying to convince anyone of his worth. His value becomes internal, not outsourced. And when that shift happens, people feel it before he even speaks. Younger men often confuse confidence with aggression. They chase approval through their actions, their words, their gestures, desperately trying to prove they're worthy. But chasing is rooted in doubt. It reveals a man who still needs something from others to feel enough. True confidence doesn't move like that. It doesn't push. It doesn't pursue recklessly. It stands still. It observes. It lets the world come to it because it knows it doesn't lose anything by waiting. There's a deep magnetism in a man who no longer chases anything that isn't also choosing him. He's not cold. He's clear. He doesn't get pulled into performance. He doesn't beg for affection, attention, or admiration. He walks through life with the posture of someone who already knows what he brings to the table. That awareness shows in how he speaks, measured, grounded, never rushed. It's seen in how he reacts, calm, composed, never overreaching. This kind of man isn't trying to impress. He's trying to express. His goal isn't to win others over but to stay aligned with who he is. And that quiet power, that calm certainty, is what younger women find intriguing. It's the kind of energy that doesn't flirt to be liked. It speaks because it has something meaningful to say. It's not about seduction, it's about self-respect. And that self-respect makes him desirable without even trying. In a world filled with noise, this kind of confidence becomes a rare signal. Everyone else is clamoring for attention. He doesn't need to. He's selective with his time, intentional with his presence, and uninterested in proving his worth to anyone who doesn't already see it. He values connection, but not at the cost of his identity. He's open, but not desperate, available, but not accessible to just anyone. And that boundary, unapologetically held, makes him powerful. Younger women smile not because he's trying to catch their eye, but because he doesn't need to. He holds his gaze, but he doesn't stare. He listens with interest, but not obligation. He engages with depth, but not attachment. There's no sense of urgency in him, no pressure to be chosen. That lack of neediness, that freedom, is what makes his presence linger long after he's gone. Confidence that doesn't chase comes from having lost and survived. It's born from failure, from disappointment, from reality, not from fantasy. This is the kind of confidence that can walk away from what's not right, not because it doesn't hurt, but because self-worth is no longer up for negotiation. It's already been earned, deep within, through trials that no one else even saw. There's a difference between wanting and needing. This man may want companionship, but he doesn't need it to define him. He may welcome love, but he doesn't abandon himself for it. That distinction is everything. It's what makes him grounded in his presence. He doesn't pursue connection out of emptiness. He invites it from a place of fullness. And in doing so, he attracts people who are also whole, not just looking to be filled. He isn't afraid of rejection. He's not wounded by silence. He's not derailed by being overlooked, because the core of his confidence isn't tied to outcomes. It's tied to who he is when no one is watching. And that inner knowing is what keeps him from chasing. He moves in truth, not in fear. He walks forward, not because he's chasing something, but because he's aligned with something greater. His purpose, his peace, his integrity. In the end, this kind of confidence becomes a mirror. It reflects back to others what they haven't yet found in themselves. It challenges them without speaking. It inspires without demanding. And for those who recognize it, especially younger women, it becomes unforgettable, because it's rare, it's real, and it never begs to be seen. There's a weight to a man who has lived. Not just survived, but truly lived. Who has felt the sting of regret, the sharp edge of failure, and the quiet dignity of standing back up again. Experience leaves a mark, but it doesn't scar, it shapes. And when you walk through life with those lessons etched into your body, your words, your silence, you carry a certain gravity. That's what draws people in. That's what makes others lean closer without knowing why. Younger men often move with urgency because they lack the reference points of failure and recovery. They haven't yet tasted the slow, burning wisdom that comes from being patient with pain. But the man who's faced loss, betrayal, heartbreak, and hard decisions, he walks differently. He doesn't rush. He's not rattled. There's a stillness in him that comes from having already confronted the storms and realized he can survive them. And that stillness becomes magnetic. Experience teaches you what no book, no mentor, no podcast ever can: who you are when everything falls apart. It teaches you how to stand when your pride is shattered, how to speak when your voice is shaky, how to lead when you're uncertain. And that kind of depth becomes visible, even when you don't say a word. People can sense it. They can feel that you've lived through real moments. Moments that refined you, not just defined you. There's a kind of man who's no longer chasing validation because he's already been validated by fire. He's earned his self-respect the hard way. He's failed publicly, broken privately, and rebuilt quietly. That man walks into a room and brings the room to him, not by intention but by impact. People gravitate toward what feels solid in a world full of facades. An experience makes you solid. It strips away the illusions and replaces them with presence. When younger women smile at that kind of man, they may not even fully understand what they're responding to. It's not about surface, it's about soul. It's about the quiet knowledge that he's seen life, not just from the highs of success but from the ground level of struggle. It's about how he listens, not to respond, but to understand. How he speaks, not to impress, but to connect. That subtle difference is felt, not forced. Experience creates discernment. You don't jump into everything that looks good. You've learned to pause, to assess, to trust your instincts. And that restraint, that ability to hold back, to wait, to choose carefully, that's not weakness. That's strength refined through repetition. It's confidence that doesn't just know what it wants, but knows what it's not willing to entertain anymore. That clarity is rare, and it radiates. People can fake charm. They can memorize lines, they can mimic success. But you can't fake depth. You can't replicate the way a man speaks when he's made peace with his past. You can't pretend to have the calm that only comes from facing real loss. And you can't imitate the kind of emotional steadiness that emerges after watching your world break and choosing to rebuild it without bitterness. That's what experience gives you. A man who's lived doesn't need to compete. He collaborates. He doesn't need to dominate. He influences. He doesn't rush to be heard. He waits to speak truth. There's a security that experience brings that no amount of bravado can replicate. It's in the way he says no without apology. It's in the way he lets people leave without chasing. It's in the way he chooses peace over proving himself. People are drawn to stories even when they're unspoken. A man of experience carries those stories in his silence. The way he holds eye contact. The way he pauses before he answers. The way he walks with intention instead of impulse. Younger people, especially women, can sense when a man has nothing to prove but everything to offer. That emotional posture is impossible to fake and impossible to ignore. It's not about being perfect. It's about being real. And the man who's been through enough no longer fears imperfection. He embraces it. He knows that cracks let light in. That failure builds foundation. That brokenness can birth beauty. And when he walks with that kind of acceptance, that kind of inner authority, it becomes magnetic, because it's rare. It's timeless. It's earned. True masculinity doesn't impose. It influences. It doesn't need to dominate to be felt, and it doesn't raise its voice to be heard. The strongest men are often the quietest in the room, not because they lack power, but because they've refined it. They've learned that force doesn't create loyalty, and control doesn't inspire respect. Real leadership, real masculinity, is about creating safety, not fear. It's about making people feel seen, not small. That's the kind of energy that commands attention without demanding it. Masculinity that leads without force is deeply grounded in self-mastery. It's not reactive, it's responsive. It doesn't seek to overpower, it seeks to understand. This man doesn't try to win arguments, he wins trust. He doesn't try to control outcomes, he focuses on what he can control. His words, his choices, his emotions. That self-command becomes his influence. Others follow not because they're told to, but because they're drawn to the clarity and steadiness he brings into the space. It's the way he holds his frame in conflict without needing to attack. It's how he listens without interrupting, even when emotions rise. It's how he stands firm in his values but remains open to hearing another perspective. That kind of masculine leadership doesn't shame, doesn't belittle, doesn't manipulate. It creates room for others to rise without feeling threatened. It's not about power over someone, it's about power with someone, and that is the difference between dominance and presence. Younger men often mistake aggression for strength, because they haven't yet learned the depth of restraint. They raise their voices thinking that volume equates to authority. But a man who truly leads knows that real power doesn't flinch. It doesn't lash out. It doesn't chase submission. Instead, it offers direction through example. Others respect him not out of fear, but because they sense that his power comes from a place of stability, not insecurity. This kind of masculinity doesn't need to make noise. It's felt in the way he handles pressure, the way he carries responsibility without complaint, the way he owns his mistakes without deflecting. It's not performative, it's proven. Every decision he makes is guided by principle, not ego. And because of that, others feel safe in his presence. They trust his leadership because it's consistent, not conditional. It's earned, not enforced. He's the one others turn to when things get uncertain. Not because he claims to have all the answers, but because he knows how to stay calm in the chaos. His steadiness is his leadership. He understands that masculinity is not about suppressing emotion. It's about regulating it. It's not about detachment. It's about strength with compassion, and that combination is what allows him to lead without needing to dominate. His strength invites, rather than intimidates. In relationships, this man doesn't play games. He communicates clearly. He doesn't manipulate to get his way. He sets expectations and honors them. He creates a space where both people can breathe. He doesn't fear independence. He respects it. He encourages the other person's growth, even if it means letting go. That's not weakness, it's maturity. Because a man who leads without force doesn't cling, he chooses. And he allows others to choose too. People often confuse masculinity with control, but real masculinity doesn't grasp. It guides. It doesn't corner, it liberates. It knows that strength isn't proven by how much you can take, but how much you can give without losing yourself. That's what sets him apart. He walks with dignity, not dominance. He uplifts without overstepping. He knows who he is, and that identity isn't dependent on anyone else's submission. He has nothing to prove and nothing to hide. That transparency becomes his power. He admits when he's wrong. He celebrates others' victories. He doesn't feel threatened by someone else's strength, because he knows his worth isn't reduced when someone else shines, and that internal security makes him a man others want to follow, not because they have to, but because they believe in him. That is real influence. Masculinity that leads without force doesn't seek obedience. It earns respect. It doesn't take control. It creates clarity. It's not about flexing. It's about anchoring. And in a world filled with noise, chaos, and false bravado, this kind of man stands out. Not because he pushes his way to the front, but because the ground feels different when he stands on it.